From a defabricated solar-powered garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominick. On today's episode, judging the skill and reliability of your local plumbing contractor by the amount of exposed butt crack. And now, the podcast host who has no worries for such things because he does all of his home repair without pants, Pete Dominick!
That is right, Pico. It was just a couple weeks ago now that I was trying to fix the chain on my chainsaw, and I realized that the problem was I was wearing pants. So I took them off, and I got it right on. No problem at all. Folks, welcome to another episode of Stand Up with Pete Dominick Daily. And do I have a special one for you today, because what I decided to do was take the Thursday Hangout and share it with everybody. This past Thursday night, I had some really special guests stopping by who are very insightful. We had a lot of fun, and I wanted to share that with you today. So I've got Glenn Kirschner, Eric Segall, Officer Harry Dunn, and the great Wajahat Ali all joining me on today's show. If you are listening on Monday, I hope that you had a good weekend, a pleasant weekend, a fulfilling weekend. Mine was one of connection and collaboration and contagion, because as soon as Ava got back, she somehow contracted the flu. But so far, nobody else has it, and she is doing okay. But, sheesh, she gets back from Spain and somehow contracted the flu, probably while traveling. Who knows? Anyway, speaking of contagion, I've got a lot of news for you, including the big news that the COVID lab leak theory has been given some more merit over the weekend. Now, I think everybody should use caution with this because it's such a serious allegation, and I think a lot of folks for a long time made the assumption that COVID came out of a lab in China because it seemed likely based on what was going on at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in 2021. But then there are experts saying, while it's possible, we don't have that evidence yet, and we don't want to jump to that conclusion. Experts, which I certainly trust, including one of my closest friends who is a virologist. But here it is, the new intelligence and the shift has come first reported from the Wall Street Journal on Sunday that the Department of Energy, is concluding that an accidental laboratory leak in China most likely caused the coronavirus pandemic, though U.S. spy agencies remain divided over the origins of the virus, American officials said on Sunday. The conclusion was a change from the department's earlier position that it was undecided on how the virus emerged. Some officials briefed on the intelligence said that it was relatively weak and that the Energy Department's conclusion was made with, quote, low confidence, suggesting its level of certainty was not high. While the department shared the information with other agencies, none of them changed their conclusion. So I don't know what to think. Here is the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, on State of the Union with Dana Bash on Sunday.
One of the things in that Wall Street Journal report, which I can't confirm or deny, but I will say the reference to the Department of Energy, President Biden specifically requested that the national labs, which are part of the Department of Energy, be brought into this assessment because he wants to put every tool at use to be able to figure out what happened here.
So what do you think, why, and how much does this matter? And will we ever know the truth? That is those are all, I think, the relevant questions. And the Chinese aren't exactly very comfortable with sharing that information because that could be really bad for them, of course. All right, well, I'll be talking about that a lot more and asking people about it, but I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on it. It's hard to know. I think a lot of people just want to be right or wrong about certain things, and I certainly don't really care about that as much as I do the evidence for any claims, and I always want to hear all of the evidence for a claim before I certainly decide and settle on a decision, much less share it here on the show. So we'll see. We'll follow it and definitely want to hear from you. But speaking of contagion, I also read this. The CDC warning of an increase in antibiotic-resistant stomach infections. That sounds fun. CDC now warning public health officials about a significant uptick in stomach infections caused by an antibiotic-resistant strain of bacteria. The report was issued on Friday by the CDC, an advisory, not report, saying that they're monitoring an increase in cases of shigellosis. Shigellosis, an illness that can cause diarrhea, fever, and abdominal cramps caused by a strain of bacteria called Shigella. I think I'm nailing that pronunciation, Vicky. This stomach bug is usually treated without antibiotics, but immunocompromised people like those with HIV or receiving chemo are at more risk of serious illness. Severe shigellosis can be life-threatening, so thought I'd give you a heads up on that as well. All right, well, let's get away from contagion, shall we? But let's stay with what seems to be the theme using the letter C today. Thousands of Californians remaining without power following a winter storm. What happened? They get snow in Southern California, and we still haven't gotten snow. So we got a little snow, actually, over the weekend. I mean, a tiny, tiny amount. We're supposed to get a little bit more later, I think, this week, but we'll see. Here in the Northeast, still not getting hardly any at all, but they're getting it in Southern California. Everything is just completely whacked. Speaking of whacked and staying with C, we've got CPAC coming up March 1st through 4th. It's the conservative political action convention. Returns to Washington after going on the road to Florida and Texas. It'll be the first time that Washington hosts CPAC since COVID outbreak. Back in the Gaylord National Resort, where I had been so many times to CPAC, like 3-4 times. But this year, it's a little bit different in tone because CPAC's own organizer, Matt Schlapp, has been accused of sexual assault, alleged sexual assault. An unnamed Republican staffer has filed a lawsuit against Matt Schlapp, who is the chairman, of course, the American Conservative Union, which is behind CPAC, of groping that guy's genitals as he drove Matt Schlapp to Atlanta last October. The man, who is in his late 30s, is seeking nearly $9.4 million in damages in a complaint that included screenshots of purported text messages. Matt Schlapp is strenuously denying the allegations. Last month, he tweeted that the complaint is false and that his family is suffering unbearable pain and stress due to the false allegation from an anonymous individual. So we'll see what happens there. But some people are even apparently avoiding CPAC because of these allegations against Schlapp. But the lineup includes Trump allies like Ben Carson, Marsha Blackburn, Ted Cruz, representatives like Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ronnie Jackson, Jim Jordan, Scott Perry, Elise Stefanik, former White House senior advisor Stephen Miller. Oh, they're all going to be there. Oh, what fun it will be, and more. I certainly hope there's an outbreak of shigellosis, or whatever that is called, while CPAC is underway at the Gaylord. You know who else is speaking at CPAC? Our boy Mike Pompeo, who, of course, is going to be the nominee. I've said it many times. Rick Wilson, who attended many CPACs before co-founding the Lincoln Project, said DeSantis is not going. I think that's because Schlapp, like many other Republicans, has made the probable correct calculus that Ron DeSantis is an overpriced stock and one Donald Trump is still the best-known quantity in the Republican Party. Wilson, who has met Ron DeSantis in person and found him to have the, quote, charisma of a toaster oven, argues that the current audience for the governor falls into three groups. Culture war weirdos who believe this whole woke thing, which is a meaningful but not enormous part of the party. National Review writers who are desperate for anything other than Trump so they can say, see, we're past that. We can go back to normal. And he says, I've got bad news for them. Nobody's ever invited them back to the room for the Republican Party of tomorrow. Just as nobody's ever inviting guys like me back in the room. It's over. The party's run by the mob and not by the intellectuals. It's never going to go back. Once a movement becomes a populist movement dominated by grassroots of the base, it never goes back to being a thoughtful, intellectually driven movement. All right, well, that is Rick Wilson's commentary on CPAC. That's the end of my commentary on CPAC, but I just wanted to give you a heads up because that is happening this week, Wednesday to Saturday, and you're going to hear a lot of noise coming out of it, so I thought I'd prepare you for it. And today's show is brought to you by the letter C, and the last C I have for you is canceled. The Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, and other newspapers across the country say they will no longer carry, but cancel, I'm saying the word cancel, the syndicated Dilbert comic strip after cartoonist Scott Adams urged white people to, quote, get the hell away from black people. Yeah, Dilbert is gone in at least most newspapers. He uttered his racist advice during his online video program last week, during which he labeled black people a hate group. So there's context to this. It has to do with some poll coming out of the Rasmussen polling group, but I don't really think any of it matters. It's pretty terrible what he said, and I'm happy to see that these major newspapers are getting rid of Scott Adams, who is needed to be gotten rid of a long time ago. He's been a longtime Trump supporter and has said all kinds of very controversial things, and there's just no place for a guy like that writing a comic strip. So who will miss Dilbert is my big question. Never read the comic strip, don't care about it, do care about the comments from an influential guy like Scott Adams, who people took seriously for a long time, but now hopefully they won't, because he's done. Hopefully. We'll see. And finally, what else can I tell you here? Oh, yeah, Woody Harrelson disappointingly comes out as basically, I think it's fair to call him anti-vax. And he was hosting Saturday Night Live this weekend. Did you see it? He's there for the 5th time, and he performed, I think it's fair to call it an anti-vax monologue. It triggered some real weird, awkward silences, a few disgruntled laughs in the audience, and an uproar on social media. He started his 6-minute spiel describing himself as a redneck hippie who identifies as purple politically, a joke that clearly fell flat according to the Daily Beast, which reported Harrelson began to tell a bizarre story about a script he'd read in 2019 after the last time he hosted the show, but continually interrupted himself to talk about his penchant for weed and the fact that he spent 7 months without alcohol last year. It was super awkward. I watched it, and it was just like there weren't really many laughs, and Woody is such a likable fella, but then he talked about pretending to read a script that basically went like this.
Okay, so the movie goes like this. The biggest drug cartels in the world get together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in the world to stay locked in their homes, and people can only come out if they take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over. I threw the script away. I mean, who is going to believe that crazy idea, being forced to do drugs? I do that voluntarily all day long.
Oh, right. There you go. The reason why I feel like the jokes didn't hit because they just weren't so remarkably untrue. It wasn't remotely close to what happened. I don't get that. It's really frustrating, really disappointing. Am I missing something, folks? Let me know what you thought of Woody Harrelson's monologue. The pharmaceutical companies got together and bought up all the media and all the politicians. Did they buy up all the epidemiologists and virologists and vaccine experts and doctors as well? Did we all not know people who died of COVID? Millions and millions of people around the world, hundreds of thousands of people in the U.S., over 1 million people have died of COVID in the U.S. And then they stopped dying at those rates because of what? Oh, a vaccine that saved everybody's lives. Okay. What am I missing? Let me know. And also let me know how to get some of that sweet, sweet drug cartel cash that they're buying up the media with. Maybe I'm not as influential, big enough to be bought up by that cash. That was so disappointing. A lot of people talking about the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, and I have been and will be as well. I've got Dave Rothkopf joining me on the show tomorrow, and I think that's all I'm going to tell you here at the opening. I hope you had a good weekend. I do want to say the best article I read over the weekend was one at The Atlantic by a writer named Jason Heller, who said that my wife and I took back our Sundays. We have an agreement. 1 day a week, we do absolutely nothing. In a society obsessed with productivity, this is harder than it should be, but it's worth it. I brought it up to Val, and she said, yeah, that must be a nice privilege, because we kind of are always doing at least a little bit of work. Every few years, my wife, Angie, and I made a pact. Every Sunday, we swore to each other we will abstain from work, and we kept our promise. On the second day of each weekend, we start our morning and end our night by binging TV in bed In the middle of the day, we binge TV on the couch, taking breaks exclusively to nap or read. The door of our apartment is opened only for pizza to be slid inside. Chores go undone. Fitness is spurned. Jobs-related emails or, God forbid, texts are not read. When we feel the familiar anxiety creeping in and imagine our inboxes filling up or our muscles turning to jelly, we're tempted to act, but we will fight to stay still. He goes on. He has all the caveats on there about work and kids and all of that. But I just thought that was interesting and wanted to mention that one to you. Also, just wanted to mention that I am very close to making my final decision about running for town council. And I should have an announcement about that this week. It's really exciting. I'm very excited to have your support on that. Nothing will change around the podcast, except there'll be more content and it'll be that much more credible because hopefully I will be running a campaign and maybe even working inside local government, which is something I've always preached. We should have more support and understanding of local media, local politics. So here I am trying to be the change I want to see. And thank you so much to so many of you who've reached out. I haven't gotten back to most of you and supported me on that. I really appreciate your thoughts. Very, very kind and generous. And I will have a decision on that this week. And now it's time to get to the show, the rest of the show. My guests, all of which hung out with us on Thursday night. It was a really fun hangout. Another reason why you should subscribe to this podcast. Go now, standupwithpete.com if you haven't already, so that you can be there for the next hangout, whether or not we have special guests. And we had so much fun. Maybe we probably will. Maybe it'll be a regular thing. We'll see. But I really outdid myself this past week when we invited 4 exciting, awesome, thoughtful, brilliant guests to join us. Glenn Kirschner, Eric Segall, Officer Harry Dunn stopped in for just a moment, and the great Wajahat Ali hung out with us, which is awesome. All of it was awesome, and I'm really looking forward to doing it again. So let's get it kicked off, shall we? All right, so we were hanging out for a while, and then my first guest was Glenn Kirschner, who stopped in and talked a little bit about the new special 2-part documentary airing in March on the Peacock Network, part of the NBC family, called Who Killed Robert Wone, which was one of the murder trials that he worked on. And I should say all of our guests who joined us on Thursday night were surprises to everybody that was at the hangout. So here it is. This is the build-up, the very moment just before Kirschner joined us, and you'll hear some of our favorite listeners guessing who was about to join us, and pretty funny guesses, starting with Vicky. Is
Bruce Bartlett.
Bruce Springsteen.
Bartlett.
Ladies and gentlemen,
George Santos.
Mike Pence.
And Mother.
George Santos in drag.
Glenn Kirschner, everybody! Hey, pal.
Can you guys hear me?
Yay!
Yes.
Hands together, hands in front of your cameras for Glenn Kirschner. We're all going to watch the new trailer for this very cool thing. Do you need to set it up, Glenn?
You know, I can set it up quickly. It's a 2-part documentary that will air on Peacock in March. And of all of the cases I tried over the course of 30 years, it is the most bizarre, most confounding case I ever handled. And it was the murder of a young lawyer named Robert Wone. And I brought a clip with me, Pete. You want to roll the clip?
Here we go.
Well, folks, if you were there, you remember I tried to roll the clip. I had some technical issues where you could hear it but not see it, and everybody made fun of me. And you should go watch the Who Killed Robert Wone 2-part documentary. We talked briefly about that, his murder trial history, and then we got to the more current issues. And a great question from Kevin Richburg. You're going to want to listen to all of it. Here we go.
Glenn, when can everybody watch it?
So I think it goes up on March 7th. And then I don't know, streaming on demand. I don't pretend to understand all of those sorts of details, but you can find it on Peacock.
Turn your mics off if you don't mind. I'll ask Glenn 2 questions. We'll do 5 minutes and we'll let him go. And then maybe one question from somebody. But real quick, your career, we all know you as this legal analyst now on MSNBC, of course, and you're a hit on YouTube and your own show, your podcast. You're killing it in independent media. And you've held our hand through all of this. But before this, you were involved in all kinds of cases prosecuting terrible people. Like who? What?
Oh, my goodness. So I was a bit of a trial junkie, I have to admit. I was an unusual federal prosecutor because real quickly, for those of you who may not know how the federal system works, 99% of the crimes that get prosecuted in the United States are in state and local court. 1%, I'm making that up, but I'm not that far off. About 1% are handled in federal court. Federal prosecutors, my beloved friends and former colleagues, are sort of notorious for pleading cases out, investigating them exhaustively in the grand jury, and before they ever have to bring a charge, they wrap it all up in a nice pre-indictment guilty plea bow, and they never have to go to trial. That is the MO of the federal prosecutor. You can probably tell I was a really bad bureaucrat when I was at DOJ for nearly a quarter of a century. That wasn't me. I liked going to trial. In D.C., we have the U.S. Attorney's Office, where the field prosecutors in the District of Columbia for the Department of Justice, but we handle not only all of the federal cases, we handle all of the local cases as well. So we are also the district attorneys for the District of Columbia. So one year I'm in federal court trying lengthy RICO trials. The next year I'm in superior court doing what I call standalone murder cases. I tried more than 50 murder cases and countless other cases, you name it, rapes and arson and carjacking, conspiracies, obstruction, on and on and on. And I did that for 30 years because it's what I love to do. So I have a lot of stories to tell. I've done half a dozen crime shows, though I will say it's not my favorite doing crime shows. It feels too much like entertainment and not enough like what we need today, which is to beat the hell out of the ruling class criminals. And I don't think that's been going on quickly enough, but I feel like Jack Smith is now picking up the pace. So hopefully we're going to see some justice come to these people who have, victimized the American public for 4, 5, 6 years now.
Quickly, you mentioned Jack Smith, and you've got videos on your YouTube channel about him, about the Georgia State Grand Jury, and more, including, I really like the video about the emails between Fox News and Dominion. But real quick, on the Georgia thing, this forewoman, everybody's saying she shouldn't be out here talking. Okay, fine, I agree. But the bottom line is she's basically said, and I think everybody agrees, that Trump is going to be indicted in Georgia. What, you going to go out on a limb and tell us that?
Yeah, let's not beat up on a citizen who spent 8 months doing her civic duty and who was told, you are permitted to give interviews. You are only not allowed to talk about the deliberations that the grand jury, conducted. She followed the letter of the rules she was given. I will admit, Pete, it's unusual to hear a grand juror out there talking about the evidence, but in Georgia, it's permitted. Is she a little bit quirky in the way she communicates? Yes. She was a citizen who just did her job. She's permitted to talk. And, I don't think there's any reason to be beating up on her. Here's what's most important. The fact that she's talking, which is allowed, according to Judge McBurney, it vests absolutely no rights in any future defendant to try to get the indictment thrown out or to try to have an impact at trial. It means nothing legally. The Trump people will use it for whatever PR advantage they think they can get out of it. But listen, given what she said, given the work Fani Willis has done, she's a justice warrior, straight up. These people, including Donald Trump, will be indicted. We've been hearing that for a long time. The Department of Justice has let us down. My colleagues are still over there working hard. I respect them. What they are doing, can I cuss, Pete?
No.
Okay. What they are doing is kicking the you-know-what. It wasn't going to be a really bad word. Kicking the you-know-what out of the insurrectionists, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers. The people prosecuting those cases are my former homicide prosecutors, and they are in there every day doing the hard work of the American people. But the sticking point is some of the higher ups at Maine Justice who are, for whatever reason, hesitant to go after the suits of the insurrection. The privileged class, the powerful, the rich, the influential, the connected. But now that Jack Smith is on the job, and I don't want to say, he's the be all and end all, and he's definitely going to bring everything home. But every single move he made, including today, we learned he's in court proactively trying to drag Mike Pence by the scruff of his neck into the grand jury before Mike Pence has had a chance to take a breath and even assert a privilege. Yeah. Jack Smith is in there trying to proactively defeat any BS privilege he might try to, throw into the mix. So I'm telling you, I feel like we're getting there. We've waited this long. We're going to have to wait a little longer, but I actually do believe indictments are going to be dropping very soon.
All right, a quick question from one listener, Kevin Richburg. Of course, you can swear. It's just at Brian Vossler's ship. I don't know if you see him because he put his baby down. His baby was here, and his baby fucking hates. Oh, well, he does not like terrible, shitty language. As a baby, we try not to influence the babies. Kevin Richburg, real quick for Glenn Kirschner, and then we will let him go hang out with like all his famous friends.
Glenn, love you. I have listened to you on a lot of different media, and I don't think you've answered the question I'm about to ask. It's a little bit doomy, but I think a lot of progressives really worry that justice may believe there are physically too many people involved in this. This conspiracy could eat up X number of Congress people, X number of Congress people's aides, state officials. Is there such a thing, in your opinion, as there simply are too many people involved?
So prosecuting is an art, not a science. So nobody can precisely answer that question. Is anybody or any organization too big to prosecute? You know what? I will fight till my dying day to make sure that the answer to that question is no. Some people say there's too much crime and too many criminals in Congress and elsewhere to get our arms around. I say it's too important not to get our arms around. I'm hearing good things from my friends about Jack Smith beefing up the team as we speak, because one of the things that I did the minute I heard he was named, I don't know him personally, we didn't overlap. We overlapped in years, but not in assignments. I had a very close friend that I tried cases with who went directly from my homicide shop to Jack Smith's shop. And I said, tell me. And he said, they finally hit on somebody who is fearless, who has prosecuted Republicans and Democrats, who has won cases, who has lost cases. But importantly, he despises public corruption. He was chief of the public integrity section, they call it, at the Department of Justice. And he goes after cases hard, even those cases where there's a risk of losing. He's brought cases against senators and governors. He's won some, he's lost some, Republicans and Democrats, but he is not going to shy away from the challenge. Is it too big to prosecute? No way. And the members of Congress who are insurrectionists have to be taken down. Will they be? Well, stay tuned.
There you go, Kevin. Great question. And Glenn Kirschner, can I just say how handsome you look? What are you wearing on the bottom? Sweatpants? Jam?
Sweatpants. Yeah. You're one of the most attractive bald men that I've kissed recently, and we have the pictures to prove it, don't we, Pete?
We certainly do, and we should have a convention. Really looking forward to that. Glenn Kirschner, give him a round of applause. Put your hands up in front. We appreciate it. He gets a lot of requests. We're very grateful that you joined us, sir. Thank you
guys.
So
love you, Pete. Appreciate you all.
Buddy. There he goes. Everybody, Glenn Kirschner. How cool was that? We're a big deal. 68 people. Well, there were 69 with Glenn, and now there's 68, I think. I just saw I saw the number go down. I was like, what the fuck? Why would someone leave? It was actually Glenn.
All right, how about it? There he goes, Glenn Kirschner. And because of Glenn, I met Harry Dunn. And I thought, you know what? While we were hanging out, let me text Harry, which is what I did. An officer, Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, joins us next. Now back to the Hangout.
Harry Dunn just got back to me and said, quote, yes, I'm out drinking right now, but I will step away. So we are about to be joined by the hero of January 6th, one of the many, Harry Dunn. And I hope that you will be on your best. I hope you will be very...
Hopefully not intoxicated.
You are not allowed to talk, Pico. That's for damn sure.
Correct. That is correct. I was a flake yesterday.
Pete will be like, and herpes. No! So how will I find him? Is if he jumps in here, let me know where he is.
Pete, hey asshole.
What's up?
Holy hey asshole, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
What's up, man? I'm struggling to hear you, man. You got me out here in the middle of the street, but I'll do anything for you, buddy.
You're the greatest, Harry Dunn. We just wanted to ask you. We didn't want to ask you anything. We wanted to tell you. You're out having a good time. So you don't need but we just want to tell you how much we love you and how grateful we are. Look at your Zoom, look at your screen, and look at us.
No, I am. I'm trying to hear you at the same time. I'm listening. No, keep on telling me how great I am. Go ahead, man. That's not enough.
I just want to tell you, you're so tall and warm. I want to cut you open like a tauntaun and climb inside just to warmth.
Hey, man. Hey, by the way, man, I don't forgive you for talking with Sergeant Gannell about me like that, man. I thought you were my friend.
Well, I feel like the two of you and so many other police officers that they are heroes, but I feel like you've gotten more attention than him, and I feel like you've been mean to him at times, and I felt like we had to punch up.
Listen, I'm not mean to that guy. I love that guy.
We know you love him, and we love you. And I just thought if we got to see your face tonight, just for a minute, it would make people really happy. Does anybody want to say anything to Harry Dunn?
Can we schedule a time to do this? I would love to come on with your your followers here, and I would love to have a conversation, man. You know me, I'm always down to talk.
Yes.
I never really shut up. So
yes, I will schedule it next week or the week after. I'll reach out to you later. Go back inside. We just wanted to say hi and say thank you.
I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. Y'all mean the world to me. I appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. Later, y'all. Later.
Oh, that's cool. That's real cool. Real cool. Should we try one more? Who should we drunk dial?
All right. Well, we didn't try one more, but I did have Eric Segall scheduled to join me, and I had Eric scheduled to join me because the great Gareth Sever, who has written so many amazing songs, has written a new one making fun of Eric Segall's guest house that he always had. Now, longtime listeners would know that our regular guest, Professor Eric Segall, and his wife Lynn live down in Atlanta, and they had a guest house behind their house. And I learned this by visiting them, and I would always make this a bit and make fun of him on the show. He always denied it. So if you're not in on this joke, you're going to be missing out. But hopefully I set it up enough so that if you aren't, you can get it, because it was really fun. It's a very funny song. So Gareth was at the Hangout. So were Eric and Lynn. And we had a hilarious and later poignant and thoughtful conversation as well. And then you're going to want to stay tuned for the last one, which is Wajahat Ali. But here it is right now. Eric and Lynn Segall joining us on the Hangout last Thursday.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now, a man who is so legal that he is also the Eagle, and let's watch him struggle as he tries to sign into a Zoom.
This is my wife. This is my wife struggling. There we go.
No,
it's my
he
wife.
has me with him, so we're good.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen!
Oh, look, and we have a guinea pig.
Oh, we predicted.
Hi, Eric.
Who called it there be a guinea pig?
You have critters.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Segall and Lynn Segall joining us. I asked them,
and Peeps.
Who said they're going to bring rodents? Who said that? Who said it?
I think it was Maddie.
Was it Maddie C? No.
No, I did predict that it would be Eric and Lynn. I did not predict the rodents.
Whoever predicted the rodents wins, Vicky. If that person identifies
guinea pig.
They won a nice blue teething ring.
A teething ring.
That's
only slightly used.
That's a re-gift. You gave that away last week.
Vicky, can you rotate that 90 degrees,
please? You're gonna call me out.
I did.
Okay, Eric and Lynn.
Sorry.
We're seeing. Okay, Eric is there, and he just moved. Can you stop moving your camera, please? I don't want to see something we're not supposed to see. Oh, she went and got another. What is this?
This one's Kit Kat.
They all have names.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're pets. What do you think they have?
How many guinea pigs are there?
Eric's favorite story, Eric and Lynn's favorite story, is that Eric proposed to Lynn for marriage while she had a guinea pig in her shirt.
It's a true story.
Like you do.
Like you do. Okay. Eric and Lynn, we have something very special for you tonight. That's why I asked you both to come. Because Eric and Lynn, for as long as Eric has been joining the show, I have been saying that they have a guest house.
We do not have a guest house.
And Lynn has never, as far as I recall, denied it.
Yes, she has.
Eric always has. And recently, Lynn came clean and admitted that not only, and Eric on the show said, came clean, to be fair. And now I'm recalling, at the end of a poignant hour, he said, I have to tell you something. We're demolishing our guest house and we're building a carriage house.
I said, we're demolishing our shed.
Was not a shed.
So, as a result of your...
I think we're muted.
Eric, you have been a man that this audience feels has the credibility and integrity that is unparalleled for a long time, doing things for all the right reasons, righteous, anti-sexist, anti-racist. You have been disingenuous about your guest house. And tonight, you and Lynn are going to hear a song written about just how deceptive you have been. This song is written by Gareth Sever of Buckets and Boards. He is here with us tonight. Gareth, say hello.
Hello. Hey.
And with cameos by the great Pete Coe.
And I should say I was inspired after your last interview, which was a beautiful interview with Professor Segall, and inspired by his necessity to talk about the guest house.
Wait a minute. Help. Wait.
There's a guinea pig. And now, hopefully I don't mess this one up. I hope to see everybody's thumbs up if you can hear. Here it is, the debut. This is Professor Segall's Guest House, written by a very talented. This is hilarious and fucking blew my mind when I heard it. It's got so much in it. Pete Coe, Gareth Sever. Let's do it.
Professor Segall's
Guest House.
Well, I'll shoot straight. Your level of honesty is not on par with your golf ability. However, your insatiable integrity is validated by your fancy law degree. So you say you're tearing down your guest house that doesn't exist. Still, the myth of the backyard building seems to endlessly persist. In the songs of yore, Pete Coe settled the score, doubling down on Dominic's irreverent references that laid out the lore. Till just the other day, in the middle of bearing your soul, you couldn't resist stating that the truth must be told. You're tearing down your guest house to build another guest house. Who would have guessed how soon the facts would come out? To be fair, the way it's laid out, less of a guest house, more of a rental. The professor surely knows proper wording is elemental. They'll be renting it out to students at the local university, with tons of fine print stating that the student will take care of their dogs for free, because they'll be on vacation in some tropical time zone, where their vacation home even has a guest house of its own. This may or may not be true, could be totally wrong, but the tradition of exaggerating guest houses will continue to live on, because they're tearing down their guest house to build another guest house. Who would have guessed how soon the facts would bear out? And now, just so you know, we're all making plans to visit, knowing full well we'll just be showing up to guinea pig sit, and maybe adopt it, and definitely go home with it to our very own guest house. Just kidding, we don't have your kind of clout, but when we sleep, perchance we'll dream of someday owning our very own fake real guest house.
It's a guest house.
Unbelievable talent with a little help from the voiceover of Pete Coe, which is hilarious. Gareth, absolutely brilliant.
I have several reactions. First, I am touched beyond imagination. Beyond imagination. Second, the detail of that song was very impressive.
I know. I need to get the lyrics.
That was very impressive details.
Actually, kind of creepy.
So, no, that was awesome. I'm having minor surgery tomorrow. Nothing important, but minor. And this made me feel really good about today. I really appreciate it. Gave me a warm feel. And I cannot thank you enough. And it has not been a guest house for 30 years. But the new structure that will take its place, I will admit, might have most of the qualities of a guest house. But
is that legal speak for?
Yes, no bathroom.
It may not be considered.
Can I see Gareth? I don't see him, and I want to see him. Oh, I see you, Gareth. Oh man, You look like you'd be funny. You look like you'd be funny. What do you do for a living?
Wait, just to be clear, he didn't say you look funny.
No, I did not say that.
Gareth, Eric, and Lynn. Gareth is a extremely talented full-time performer.
Wow.
He's a percussion. Basically, you guys,
amazing.
Segal's a huge fan of Broadway and performance in general. Will Power has seen him. Will, go ahead.
He's amazing. He's a trained tap dancer, singer, performer. So smart, just such a good guy. And honestly, amazing body for just so physical. I'm jealous.
I was going to say that, but I decided not to.
I know.
His body, yeah, and he looks like the Joker. So
he looks like Gareth. I've never met you before. I don't know if I've ever heard of you before. Thank you very much for the song. I feel like I want to drink with you right now. Like I feel like you would make me laugh. I
would love nothing better.
You would. Gareth's the greatest.
And this guy doesn't even drink.
Right.
Well, he's going into surgery tomorrow. You got to live a little.
Well, man drinks. He drinks lady drinks, but not man drinks, right?
Oh, come on with that. Before we leave, a lot of people are telling me privately, more Lynn, please. Before you two leave, you're going to leave us. Before you two leave, I thought it might be nice for you to share a story about John Lewis.
Oh.
Because you guys knew him pretty well. Both of you did. And it would have been his, I think, 83rd birthday this week, I saw. And I don't want to stop the fun and games and talking about the fact that you tried to adopt rats and mate them with guinea pigs. But I thought, because we have a great group of people here, would love to hear, a little John Lewis story, if you wouldn't mind. I met Eric and Lynn met through. Didn't you somehow meet at like Planned Parenthood?
I was giving a talk to Planned Parenthood, and Lynn was in the audience.
So Lynn was at a Planned Parenthood gig that this man was speaking at. So that's a pretty cool bona fides. Later on, I spoke at a Planned Parenthood gig that they were both at, which is one of the great honors of my life. But more importantly,
so wait. Oh, that. So people understand.
That was rude.
When you spoke at that event,
that's how we talk, Lynn. Have you not met us?
Sound like a judge.
I want everyone to understand. I think it's mad at me because I talk louder on Zoom.
He does.
That's so great to have Lynn here. Why isn't she always in our interviews?
I want everyone to know.
Eric's like Marbury versus, and Lynn's like, Jesus, the volume.
I want everyone to. Am I talking quietly enough? I want everyone to know that two things about that night that Pete did our Planned Parenthood benefit. One was he was amazingly funny and had the entire audience laughing so hard we were crying for like 30 minutes.
Nothing funnier than Planned Parenthood.
That was the weekend.
Wait.
Hold on. Quick thing. That trip, when you came here for that Planned Parenthood thing, you came to our house, and that's when you're like, what is that thing? What is that?
Yeah.
You have a house behind your house. What is that? That's when the whole guest house thing started. That trip.
Do you remember the first 2 minutes of your comments that night?
I don't.
Do you remember who they were about? Because they weren't about me, and they weren't about Planned Parenthood. So guess who they were about?
Our guest of honor, I would imagine.
Yes, that's correct. And
what did he say?
You don't remember?
No.
I was there. The event was honoring a woman who had spent her life in Planned Parenthood Southeast.
Years. She'd been CEO of Planned Parenthood Southeast for 32 years.
Reminder.
But you didn't mention her either. You talked about her at the end in a very warm way. But you began by let me phrase this diplomatically. You were expressing your relative feelings for Lynn and I, and everyone knows which of us two you prefer. And you made that extraordinarily clear in your first 90 seconds.
I don't even show you half the text I get from Pete.
I told that audience I was attracted to your wife?
Yes.
Oh. Well, that's a good way. That's a good way to endear myself at the beginning of a gig, and I'll perform.
You did it unbelievably funny. I forget what it was, but it was insanely funny. All right, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I wish we had that on video.
Pete, I swear to God, I thought that was one of the funniest 25 minutes of my life. That whole thing.
The funniest thing. We'll come back to John Lewis in a second, but the funniest thing Pete ever did.
Notice it took over here.
The funniest thing Pete ever did was when he came into town for the dentist thing.
Oh, yes. Yes. I did a gig.
People were wound kind of tight. And we're in like, he's like, you guys have to understand.
We're in Buckhead, which is the, you know.
Oh, well, hold on. Let me
he's
just.
like, you have to understand. No. Is that how you talk? So Pete goes, listen, you have to understand, I'm on the minute I show up. And he was on. And these people are kind of tightly wound and they're pretty stuffy. And he makes a blowjob joke in casual conversation about someone having something in their mouth. And the woman was like,
no, it was a dentist. He made a dentist blowjob joke because
I don't know what it was, but I mean, I used to be able to repeat the joke. I mean, for years I could repeat the joke. I've wiped it, mouthwashed it out of my head.
All, that never happened.
It happened.
It did.
It was actually the funniest part.
Lynn has a drinking problem that never happened, or maybe I could. No, I was booked to do a dentist's convention in Atlanta, and Lynn and Eric lived there. So I was like, yeah, I of course I'll take the gig. And before the gig, I said to them, why did you come with me? They came with me to the gig of all these dentists. And during dinner before the gig, I said, you got to understand, when I walk in the room, I'm the comedian. Sorry, but when I walk in the room, I have to be kind of on. And one of these stuffy assholes said something, and I got triggered, and I fucking said something I knew would.
You pissed her off. You definitely pissed her off.
Some old dentist's rich wife got mad at me, and I was like, well, then this is going to be an amazing gig. And it was.
That's right. That's right.
All I did was make fun of orthodontists for half an hour and got paid. It was amazing.
Did you want to do John Lewis for me?
John Lewis. Yes, John Lewis. And then I have to get to my next special guest.
I'll say a really quick thing about John Lewis. Lynn and I supported Jason Carter for governor when he ran in 2000, whatever it was, 16. And
not 16, 12.
18, whenever. No, it was 12. But anyway, Jason Carter, grandson of Jimmy Carter, is running for governor. We're supporting him. We go to a fundraiser on a really hot day in a really crowded room with a lot of people. And the rumor was John Lewis was going to be there. And he did. He came. And he was dressed in a suit and tie like I think he always was. And he was unbelievable. I mean, he was and he eventually held both of our girls, kids.
That's the picture that I have on Facebook.
We have a picture of him doing that. And he did it. I watched him I kind of watched and observed. And every single person he talked to and every single person he shook his hand, he looked right in their eyes and he connected with them, not in a politician's way, like a Ted Kennedy way, but in a different way. That was just, to me, I'd never seen it before in person. I've been in rooms with like Ted Kennedy, people like that. I have never seen someone radiate so much warmth in such a short period of time, in a moment of time was like 95 degrees and people sweating, and he's in a suit. Sorry, that's my story.
Okay, so we've gotten to know his family because of something I'll explain in a second. But a quick anecdote: his brother told us once that a trip to Home Depot, any old trip, I need some nails, go to trip Home Depot, Lowe's, you pick the place, 3 hours, always 3 hours, because he would make time for anyone who approached him.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
And and when he passed in 2020, I can't tell you how many people I know posted pictures of themselves with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
including me.
Everybody. It felt like everybody I know in Atlanta had a picture of themselves with John Lewis. Like
mine was photoshopped, so it's pretty cheap. No, I danced with John Lewis to Pharrell's Happy after I interviewed him in Aspen, and it's one of the weirdest, best moments.
That's cool.
You know what?
He loved to dance.
I don't want to top your John Lewis story.
No, dude, you can do that.
Well, John Lewis made me feel like I was off the bench. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Growing up, I was a small kid. I made the team, but I never played. So being on the bench, even as a senior in the sports I loved, soccer and lacrosse, really was my cross to bear. So what that means is I had a pretty good life, but that for me was tough. And in therapy at one point, my therapist, I was about, in my early 40s, kind of broke that down. She's like, it's ridiculous that you still have that somewhere in your brain, given how much you've accomplished in your career. And she would name off things about my career and I would feel good, whatever. But I was like, I still didn't feel like I had been successful somehow in a way that high school was, holding me back. Anyway, Aspen Ideas Fest was always a fun trip for Val and I, because we'd always reconnect during that trip and hike, and it would always be just renewing our relationship in a really healthy, thoughtful way. And this time I interviewed John Lewis, and then Val and I went on our hike, and I was walking. I get emotional thinking about it, and I started crying. And she's like, "Why are you crying?" I was like, "I interviewed John Lewis today." And she's like, "Yeah, you interview a lot of people, whatever." And I was like, "Dude, I am off the bench."
Yeah, that's great, Pete. I love that story. That's great. I haven't heard that. I have not heard that story.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody has, but my therapist.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey guys, that was a great story. And on a serious note, thank you so much. You make me feel like family, and I really appreciate it, especially these days. So thank you for the song. It means the world to me. And you all know that I wouldn't be where I am without Pete, and that's the truth, and that's true. So
absolutely right. You owe so much to me.
I do, and I do. It's absolutely true.
Like right here.
You're one of the best humans, top humans in my life. I love you, buddy. And you know what I love even more than you?
Me. Yeah, I do. That person. All right, whatever. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Later.
Thanks, Eric.
Good night. Good luck.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. That was cool. That was pretty cool, right? And now we have another special guest that he's been waiting, and I said now. So hopefully he'll chime in here any second here, and we won't really even have to.
Nobody puts Pete Dominic on the bench. Nobody.
Ladies and gentlemen, was quite an entrance.
Wow.
All right. I thought it was going to be Artie Lang.
I could be Artie Lang.
Yeah, but can you make a bench?
Hey, everybody, it's Wajahat Ali. I mean, Artie Lang. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. That was a really good John Lewis story. I feel like it's a high. We're talking about like John Lewis, and they're like, and here's Wajahat Ali. Wajahat, come on the Pete Dominic show.
I know. Well, what is your John Lewis like? What is your equivalent? You've met a billion. You've probably met you've met some of your heroes. I bet. Give me one of those.
I actually did meet John Lewis when he was given an award in D.C. And likewise, a lot of these politicians, I've had an interesting life. What they do is they kind of have a glacial look where they'll look at you, and for a second you think, oh, they're actually looking at me. And then right when they pass by, it's over, right? Condoleezza Rice was very skilled at this, because I was invited to the State Department when she was Secretary of State. She was very good at pretending that she really cared about what you were saying. And the second she moved on to another person, it's like, you are dead to her. It's like, you are dead to me. John Lewis, I remember he took his time. Like he got the award, and he just then went into the crowd, which is what they never do because they get surrounded. And he just met everyone. He took photos with us. I have a photo with him. And it was just really lovely and nice. I remember that. And I remember, not a particular hero. I was just thinking about this first. I don't know. I think I saw an ad for History of the World Part 2 that's coming out on Hulu. And I just remembered, it's so interesting, like driving home today, getting dinner for my kids about 2 hours ago. I was thinking to myself, I interviewed Mel Brooks and I made him laugh. He actually agreed to come on to a show. I reached out to him through his son, Max Brooks. And then I don't know if I told you the story, Pete. I just kept harassing him respectfully. I was respectfully persistent. And then Max sends me an email. He goes, yo, you have to open this email. And it was a video clip. And I opened the video clip, and it's Mel Brooks looking directly in his son's phone and goes, okay, I'll do it. I'll do the interview. And then Mel Brooks comes on the show. I was co-hosting Al Jazeera America. And we're just riffing, and I made the guy laugh. And I was like, isn't this wild? Like, who would have thought the same kid who grew up watching, History of the World and Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles is making Mel Brooks, it was just wild to me. It might not be like a big thing for most folks, but I think it's one of those situations where, we've talked about this on your program before, where, and we said this respectfully, right? We're men, we're growing up, and you had crushes growing up, and then you grow up, and your former crushes who are respectful adults, and you're professional with them, they're talking to you, and you're like, I had a crush on this woman, and now she's talking to me and asking my advice. What's happening?
Yeah, I've got 3 right off the bat, and I interviewed all of them.
Name them. You got to name them, man.
Yeah, I'm about to. Winnie Cooper, Danica McKellar.
Oh, classic.
Alyssa Milano.
Classic.
Samantha, and Jewel.
Oh, good old Jewel. Yeah. My wife is a big fan of Jewel. Yeah. Danica McKellar is like brilliant, as you know. Alyssa Milano is very sweet, very passionate. And Jewel, I know someone who knows Jewel who apparently is very cool on the deal and cares deeply.
She's very cool. You know what all three of them had in common? All of them wanted my personal phone number and to ask me to hang out like outside work.
They were like jumping on you like panthers in heat.
It was really
and you had to say,
like,
"Oh, wait, women,
a married man, ladies, stop it." I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed our interview, but no. Now Desiree is here. Desiree booked you for a book. Like they had. This is one of her. All of her friends apparently. What is it? They're all very attractive. Apparently.
It's like really good-looking moms who read books.
Just go get an ugly person and bring them in. But anyway, they got your book, which I just included. I just dropped your book, which is now out in paperback. Go back to where it came from and other helpful recommendations. They bought your book. They read it, and then they invited you. Desiree, go ahead. Say hi to Waj. I didn't ask him for much time. I want to let him go, but go ahead.
Yeah, we just want to thank you so much for joining us for our book, and we absolutely loved it. And Pete, Ryan wanted to say hi.
Oh, Ryan!
Thank you so much, Waj. And I sent in a special request for you tonight, and I'm so glad that you showed up.
No, Desiree was lovely. She was so kind, and the people who listen to your podcast, it's a great community. And then they invited me over, and then usually when you do some of these book clubs, people look like me. They look like doorknobs, and they're like respectable nerds. But then all these like really good looking, like smart people, like drinking wine and like reading books. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think it's a great community. And then they invited me over. And then usually when you do some of these book clubs, people look like me. They look like doorknobs and they're like respectable nerds. But then all these like really good looking, like smart people, like drinking wine and like reading books. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think I'm allowed in this book club. Yeah. Like if I didn't write the book, I don't think I would have been given an invitation.
They probably would have brought you in to cook something.
Yeah, they're like Uber Eats 5 stars. I'm like, thank you.
Even worse, deliver. Okay, quickly, I got to ask you, what the hell happened to you this week? I defended you, by the way, somewhere.
As you should.
I said, Wajahat Ali has to be taken in context with all of Wajahat Ali. And this guy speaks in such a way that it's both interesting and often entertaining, really funny. As a comedian, I want to tell you, this guy has said all kinds of things throughout his career. He's written them in context, and you have to take them in context. But what he said this week about Nikki Haley, in my mind, was a more artful way of what I have been saying over and over and over, which is women can uphold patriarchy and black folks can uphold white supremacy. It's not controversial. Nope. It's not radical. It's been happening since the history of humanity. And that's what you said, but you said it in a more provocative way. And there's been a firestorm around you to the point where I was like, reached out. I was like, are you good, man? Because I hope you're not buying into any of this shit, because you called her a perfect Manchurian candidate for white supremacists. And I guess, you're a brown guy. You can do it. It wasn't me. It was you. Go ahead.
Well, look, hit dogs holler. It was a panel on Mehdi Hasan's MSNBC show with 3 South Asians. I am South Asian, and children of South Asian immigrants, myself, Asha Rangappa and Mehdi Hasan, who had a 2-section panel where before we came on for the panel, Mehdi brought the receipts for 5 minutes and talked about Nikki Haley, who in one side of her mouth talks about being a proud daughter of immigrants, but then has a history of saying just hateful things against immigrants and is bashing immigrants and women of color to get ahead during her presidential race. She brings us on. We bring all the receipts, and we talk about the phenomenon, as you have mentioned, that doesn't matter, black, brown, Asian. It's when a person of color allows themselves to be used as a cultural validator for often right-wing talking points. And I said to launder right-wing talking points, and specifically through history, it's called the moral minority effect, right? We are the moral minority. We're the good ones. Why can't the rest of you pull yourself up from the bootstraps? You darkies are always whining and complaining. We live in a post-racial society. If I can make it, you can make it too. That's why we don't need affirmative action. That's why we don't need child tax credit. That's why we don't need these welfare queens. And then the right wing often says, see, I'm not saying it. Herschel Walker's singing, and he's a black. How can I be racist? And if you don't believe me, Lindsey Graham literally brought Herschel Walker. Remember that? It's like Lindsey Walker literally has him next to him and he goes, this is really important because they say that the Republican Party is racist. How can we be racist if we're running Herschel Walker? And it's like, it's literally the tokenization. And Nikki Haley, of all people, should know better because Nikki Haley's father was racially profiled. She is a daughter of Indian immigrants. And how does she launch her campaign, Pete, in that 3-minute ad that you've all seen? She goes all in the anti-CRT, anti-wokeness BS, attacks women of color. Not only that, she then says Ron DeSantis didn't go far enough in Don't Say Gay. Not only that, she told a black man, Raphael Warnock, he should be deported. And when given a chance to criticize Donald Trump, she goes, I don't punch sideways, I only punch forward. Oh, but I also put my boots on black women and immigrants. And so we brought out all the receipts in context. And I said, and this is what really pissed me off, Pete, because we've talked about this on your show. It's like we're watching Groundhog's Day or we're watching that Peanuts cartoon with Charlie Brown and Lucy, where we know that the right wing operates in bad faith. We know it's all about hypocrisy and projection. We know it. And yet the majority, like Charlie Brown, always falls for it. So a day and a half later, like clockwork, Pete, 12 o'clock, Fox News comes out with a hit piece on me. 1 hour later, Daily Mail. 1 hour later, New York Post. 1 hour later, literally the same talking points in the mouths of politicians. And now all of a sudden, literally gaslighting us in real time. They're like, how is this outrage? How dare he say that? How is he racist? And I'm like, I'm brown. What? Like, she's brown also. And then no one looks at the context. And then the next thing, this one was really sad. Jake Tapper on CNN. Jake has my cell phone number. I used to be an employee of CNN. Has a roundtable on this. Invites everybody but me. Doesn't talk about Nikki Haley's comments, her behavior, her associations, everything that we talked about. Doesn't talk about Ann Coulter literally last Friday openly saying Nikki Haley should go back to her country. Doesn't talk about Donald Trump saying that I can't make Nikki Haley my VP because she has a complexion problem. None of that. You know what they say instead, Pete? How dare Warbalot say that? The left is insane. And so now you have all these people in our industry wagging their finger at me and saying, tut, tut, Wajahat. And I'm like, you're trying to appease a right-wing movement that calls you pedophiles and groomers and wants to kill you. And each time you do that, do they moderate, Pete? Do they become nice to you, or do they still want to kill you? So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I hope I explained the last 1 week. I've been perfectly fine. It's helped my book sales. They've literally republished my stuff verbatim. And Nikki Haley, when given an opportunity on Fox to comment, she sidestepped it because she knows if she opens that Pandora's box, all she'll need is one reporter or anchor to say, well, what do you think about Ann Coulter telling you to go back? No one's asked her yet.
Wajahat Ali, I worry for you when these hit pieces come out. What you said was not at all controversial. If I said it, no one would have said shit. And I have said it over and over and over. And no one cares. Granted, you know, I've got 14 people listening, but that still, I say it on Twitter. You know, I called out Don Lemon the other day. God damn it.
Yeah, and as you should have, because Don said something egregiously misogynistic. And now they're saying Waj and Don said the same thing. I'm like, no, Don made a mistake. Hopefully he apologized for it. I did not say the same thing as Don. We brought out the receipts and the record. We brought out her actual behavior, right? But they conflate us as the crazy left. And instead of mainstream institutions, Pete, especially those in the media, fighting back, they always take a knee. And that's what I always want to tell your listeners, because you and I have been both in the media. The right doesn't give an F. They'll attack us. Like they'll do stochastic terrorism. The left thinks it's really wise to fight back by not fighting. And I'm like, has that worked in the past 7 years? Like at all, Pete? Like maybe some. So that's why I fight back. You've seen me in the past 5 days. I didn't take this shit lying down. I fought back with receipts. And notice no one's been able to respond to me. Have you noticed that, Pete? I straight up tweeted to Nikki Haley, never responded to me. I responded to Jake Tapper, Dave Weigel of Washington Post. I'm like, what do you think about her actual comments and behavior? What do you think about Ann Coulter? Not a single panel about Ann Coulter in 2023 telling Nikki Haley, an American citizen, to go back to her country. But Wajahat Ali says it, and he's apparently on the left. So everyone gets to rag on him. But, I feel like those who are listening, you should learn from this, and you have to fight back. You have to figuratively punch a bully in the mouth. And that's why they're so pissed off, because we brought the receipts. I didn't back down, and I still haven't backed down. And they've also took out Mehdi, and Mehdi and me didn't back down, which is why you've seen them kind of falter, if that makes sense, Pete.
I do not like the way you pronounce Mehdi at all.
It's very scary. Mehdi. It's Mehdi Hassan.
Mehdi.
Someone said they wanted to ask me a question. If someone wants to ask me a question, or if you want me to leave, I can leave.
No, you're my last. I just don't want to take advantage of you. I would love to have somebody ask a question. I think Tina had her hand up, and Tina's
great. Tina's like our publicist. We got to pay.
She is one of our angels. That's for damn sure. Yes. Go ahead, Tina.
I'll turn this 90 degrees. So, have your kids ever broken one of your Lego models after you
Yes. And inspired immense rage in me, but then I realized they're children and I love them. No, basically what happens is no rage, but then like one tear just drops from the cheek. And I'll tell you why. At the end of the day, look, they're just toys and it just things, right? But like my son, anyone who has kids, like my son comes up to me and says, Bob, he was into Harry Potter like a year and a half ago. So I had like saved up this money. I bought him this friggin' 5,000 piece Diagon Alley set. All right. It's like, just Google it. Ginormous. I was like a hero. I brought home the set. He was like, yay, Baba, you have to make it. I spent a frigging month making this, right? Like I'm the one sweating piece by piece, 5,000. And then I feel like a sense of pride and accomplishment, Tina and like Pete. I'm like, I've accomplished this Diagon Alley. And I come home like a month later, Nusayba and Ibrahim, they just broke it and throwing pieces around, laughing. And like, I'm just like, oh, my heart, why? And then I have to realize, they're kids. So what I've done now, though, is I've hidden it. So now I make sure that they can't reach it.
That's a great and fun question after such a really important. And I want to, I made a joke, but I just want to say that, I've seen you in all kinds of situations, and I am so grateful that you keep speaking out the way you speak out. And if people don't like, if everything that you say, you're happy to hear from them and talk to them. But I think you're a true leader, and I love you, and you're a great, great friend. And you are funny in a way that, as a stand-up comedian who has spent over a decade in all of the best comedy clubs in New York, it bothers me how funny you are. It bothers me to the core of my being. And I feel like I needed to get that off my chest. I have seen you like do all the things and go to all the schools and have all the accolades. And it's like, no reason this guy should be funny. But I do know that your childhood, you were not at your target weight, and that contributed to it. And so now I understand.
Anyone who has worn husky pants knows the joy and trauma of growing up fat in the 80s and 90s when we didn't have Lizzo and there was no such thing as like body positivity. And there were only two types of kids, like fat and normal. And that's all it was. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, it was fat and normal. And
when I found out you were a fat kid,
I was a fatty. I was not a fat kid. I was the fat kid. I was the fat kid.
You were fat and brown. And
I was fat and brown and shy.
And I knew that.
I had a dent in my head. You guys see the dent in my head? It's the.
Did people care about that?
There's a little dent in my head.
You're like Harry Potter.
Yeah. So I had a dent in my head because I was hit by a motorcycle. So dent in my head, brown.
What the fuck? Who says I was hit by a motorcycle and then just moves on?
I was in Pakistan, and I had this desire to cross the road, and I looked to the right and looked to the left, and I was a young kid, and I forgot that Pakistan kind of plays by its own rules. So and they don't really stop for anybody. So I was crossing the road going to the driver, and then I got hit by a big motorbike, and I was like 3. And so apparently my family was like, "Where's Wajahat?" And they saw me literally get hit from the balcony. And my aunt at the same time just happened to be driving inside. So she stops the car in the middle of the road, sees me go all the way up, and I land with all my force down on my forehead. My forehead splits open like a grapefruit. She picks me up, takes me to the local Karachi hospital, let's just say, which was lacking. And I think they operated on me with like a spork. I think they had a spork and some Play-Doh, if you see. But they said if I had landed 1 inch to my left or 1 inch to my right, I'd be dead. So I landed like at the perfect.
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, I landed at the perfect place where I wouldn't die. but now I have a dope Klingon scar.
Well, I never even saw that scar, and I've been with you in person. But I just want to say two things. One, I understand. I excuse my prior judgment about why you're funny. All of that adversity obviously leads to humor. But second of all, I do want to say I was somewhat racist when you said I was in Pakistan when I got hit by the motorcycle, and I said that explains it. It's a little bit racist, but then,
but if you've been to Pakistan, not really.
But then you said immediately, "There's no rules there," and I was like, "Okay."
You know what?
Reminded me of.
I want to give a shout out to Brian. Can I give a shout out to Brian Pesaturo, who is a fellow survivor of Husky Pants?
Oh, is that right? Oh,
he Husky corduroys. He knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did not know, Brian. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Look, Brian's crying right now. Let Brian just
Brian's
heal.
fine. Look at him. He looks great. He's doing well.
Listen, I'll tell you this. A secret. Any kid who grew up wearing Husky pants, right? I don't care if they're a model right now. I don't care if they have six-pack abs. I don't care if they're dating all the hot women or guys. Any person who grew up Husky pants, deep in the recesses of their soul, there is trauma. Like in our mind's eye, we're still that Husky pants wearing kid.
Wow, Jeff Koneman is laughing very hard. I just want to announce that.
Because he's not laughing, he's crying.
There's a lot of catharsis right now. You've really seen a lot of people here, and you've given us yet another gift, sir. All right. Well, listen, you're the best. I'm just so grateful to you for, everything, your friendship, for how often you come on and join us, and for hanging out tonight. Last second, everybody, I will say this.
Hey, Waj, you going bowling after this?
Well, no, I haven't gone bowling in like 5 years.
Why'd you ask him if he's going bowling? Is he looking
What's on your hand? Your hand.
That's because I'm old, and when I type, I need that. But actually, now you've inspired me to go bowling. I should go. Why not?
It was a fucking bowling glove, Aaron. Jesus. So all I was saying is thank you, and you're the best, buddy. Keep up.
Real quick. This cult seems pretty cool. Like you have 60 people in your cult. Do they just hang?
I don't think it could be a cult if the idea is for the people here to just destroy you any opportunity they get. And they took the piss out of me for the first 2 hours. So,
but that's, you know what? If they pay you as subscribers, that's the least. That's the least that there should be subscription just for you to be a masochist and take it. Like everybody takes it after a week's frustration.
That's the $200 tier.
What would you give? Okay, how much would you charge for people to rub your bald head and make a wish?
Oh, $2.
Sold.
Because I know it's a grift.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. You and I are plagued with it. Like we wouldn't even be able to lean into the grift. We'd apologize. We're like, it's a grift. My head has no special powers, but you can rub it. You can just give me $1.25. Just give me $1. Just give me $1.
It's my OnlyFans. It's just head petting.
Yeah. Hey, there's a fetish for everything.
Learn anything from that interview.
You didn't?
You didn't. If you're going to do a head rubbing only's page.
That's no one's buying yet.
No, that's true. Like someone just said in the comments, the first one is free. You could totally push it. First one is free. Try it out. And then they get addicted to it. Next set costs $5. You want to shine it? You want to put oil on it? $20. You want to oil it?
No one's coming. Oil. It's me alone in a chair at the mall. No one's coming by. Not a soul.
Your wife just looks at you with disgust, shakes her head.
Everybody does. They're like, at the end of the day, ends in an arrest. That's just sad. It's a sad situation. Wajahat Ali, everybody.
Laugh at
Thank you very much, buddy.
Thank you, Waj.
Love you, Waj.
Thank you, Waj.
Thank you all.
Love you. I hope your hand gets better for bowling.
All right, well, that is it, folks. How about it? Was that a good experiment to share what happened? I hope the people's microphones weren't an issue. I worked on that and edited it a lot. But I thought that was a pretty fun thing to do. It was definitely fun to do live, but was it good to share with you here on the show?
on the Monday after. I hope so. Hope you liked it. If you did, let me know. If you didn't, let me know. Either way, standupwithpete@gmail.com. I'll be back with new guests tomorrow. It looks like Mara Quintus is going to join me along with the great David Rothkopf. Who else would you like to hear this week? Let me know. Just email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. I can't do this show without your support, so please sign up for a paid subscription and write reviews on both Apple and iTunes. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram and all of the rest of the things. I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful to you, and I hope to hear from you. So that's it. That's all I've got. And now let's take it away with the great Jon Carroll singing us out, as he always does. And by the way, you can see Jon Carroll this Sunday, February 26th in Washington, D.C. at the Palisades Hub, and Monday, February 27th in Rockville, Maryland. Friday, May 19th, he's got a gig in East Hampton, Massachusetts. I should try to go to that one. For more information, go to johncarroll.org and buy this song while you're there.
Off of your fence, even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense, and you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down, boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. The place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand